Hello everyone, it is Sunday night and we are here at Bat City live, which means it must be time to wind down your weekend. As always, I'm Shannon, aka Small Press Shann, here to talk to you about not only this week, but this week and last week's new releases from your small press and indie publishers. I'm really excited. There was a lot of really great books this week. It's a massive stack. I can't wait to dive into all of it. And of course, if we're going to be winding down our weekend, we've got to have some wine. And I'm super excited about this one. So if you don't know, Matt and I were gone last week. We were in Pittsburgh for the Comics Pro Annual Retailer Summit, which is Comics Pro is the only retail trade organization for comic store owners, which is really cool that we have that. And we get to come together once a year, meet with all the publishers, distributors, suppliers, pretty much everybody, and kind of talk about everything we're loving, everything that like you guys are loving, everything that might not be working, and what we want to see happen in the next year. One of the great things is that store owners and come from all over, and so we got to see our friends from Kamikaze up in Massachusetts, and they are also the people who publish Bad Kid Press comics. And if you know us, you know we love Bad Kids. We are super big fans, have been. And so they a couple years ago started making wines. I guess it was last year. I feel like time is just slipping away. They started making wines for their titles, and so we've been wanting to use them on Wind Down Your Weekend for forever, and we were finally able to get them from them when we saw them. And so this was the first one they did. This is for Frankenrocker and the Jailbait Punks, and I am so excited. It is a blend of a Grenache. Is that how you say that, Matt? So. Grenache. Okay, a Grenache and a Syrah. So it's going to be a little more on the sweet side than usual. So I'm kind of excited to see what they're doing with this, but it is it's going to be great. And you have comics, wine based on comics. I know we have coffee based on comics, but now we have wine based on comics, and this is just the perfect blend of all things. Wind down your weekend. So I'm going to take a drink. Oh, I expected that to be way sweeter. That was not near as sweet as I was expecting after everything I read online about how sweet like some of the Grenaches could be. That was actually not as sweet.
Yeah, it's very good.
This is really good. Oh my gosh. Yeah, this is fantastic. And you know what else is fantastic? Frankenrocker and the Jailbait Punks. So if you've never read that, you should definitely grab that book, as well as all things from Bad Kids Press.
Anything on the back?
There is a little, like, the information about it, and there's a little tiny Frankenrocker, which is super cute. I don't know if you can see it, because I know it's kind of tiny. But it does tell us that, this is, Frankenrocker loves two things. Punk rock, I have to pick that up. I can't read that. That's so small. Punk rock when it's pure, and French wine when it's properly vinified. That's awesome. Me too. Me too, Frankenrocker. If you don't know, Frankenrocker is all about literally Frankenstein's monster, like, joining a punk band, and then a bunch of aliens come from outer space, and they're like, we need to find, like, the toughest, most, like, awesome people who can go to war for us, and they show up at a punk show, and they're like, these guys must be, like, the warriors of this planet, and so they take Frankenrocker and his band to their planet to try to get them to help them fight their war. It's amazing, and it's beautiful. And I'm going to keep drinking this if I don't put it down. So I'm going to slide this over to this side. Thank you so much to Bad Kids Press and Kamikaze. And you guys are amazing. We're so happy. We also have another one that's going to be coming up, but I'm not going to tell you what it is until the next issue of that comic comes out. And we're going to have it that night. And it's going to be great. I'm so excited. I've been waiting, like, at least a year for this wine, so I'm so stoked to finally have it. And if you are in the Massachusetts area, you should go grab a bottle and taste it, because it's fantastic. All right, I'm going to share this really fast so people know that we're talking about comics, because I know we're a little bit later than usual. So we're going to share it out. There it is. All right, comics time. Sweet. All right, so we are going to hop through 2 weeks worth of comics, and we're going to do it as fast as humanly possible with me still telling you about how much I love all of the comic books, because if you don't know, I just really love comic books. So we're going to kick it off with Ice Cream Man issue 38 from Image Comics. I'm so excited that Ice Cream Man is back. every time there's even the smallest little break, I get sad because I just think this is one of the best books that we have in comics. And this is the story about a group of people who live in Garyland, and they are all Garys. And so they're all the different numbers. There's over 300 of them, and they each have a daily task that they're supposed to do. And that daily task is things like raking the leaves, even though there are no trees, or pushing a cart full of cans of spray paint, but nothing ever gets painted. And they all have all of these different responsibilities, but they are not supposed to ever say things like, maybe we're clones, or maybe where there's an outside world that we could go to. And a couple of Garys figure out that that may in fact be the case, and there may be something beyond the walls of Garyland. And you get, of course, one of those great existential conversations about what is a soul and what is a man from W. Maxwell Prince in this story. And as usual, fantastic. If you haven't read Ice Cream Man, it is an anthology series, so you can pick up any copy anytime and just jump in, because it just constantly, like, they don't connect necessarily. There's only like 3 issues ever that kind of had a connecting arc, so you're good to just jump in. Next up, we have Newburn, issue 15 from Image Comics, and this is the story of a man who was a detective and leaves the police force in order to become the guy who works for all of the mob families. Like, he calls them all together and is like, I'm in charge now of all of your policing, all of your security, things like that. And, you know, if something goes wrong and you need a detective, I'm your guy. And over the last 15 issues, we've seen that some things have gone wrong, and Newburn has brought in an assistant, and his assistant is now tangled up in all kinds of problems that she probably should have never been connected to. And Newburn is trying to get not only her, but himself out of it. And there's some double crossing, there's some betrayal, there's a lot of great noir done by Chip Zdarsky and Jacob Phillips. So you should definitely check this out. There are trade paperbacks of the first couple arcs if you missed out on that. Phantom Road, issue 9 from Image Comics. This is the story of 2 people who are trapped driving a semi-truck across a phantom road through a place to make a delivery of something they're not quite sure what it is or where it's come from. What I really like about this is the phantoms are really nondescript. Like, we don't really know still if they're zombies or if they're, you know, people that are trapped in different, like, from different places. We're not really sure. We do know that these 2 people, though, seem to kind of pop back and forth between the reality and this phantom zone. And we have a detective from the CIA, or the FBI, who has been trying to investigate the situation and figure out what exactly is going on. But when people are popping between 2 different worlds, how do you actually solve any kind of case without feeling like you're kind of losing your mind? We're going to see as this goes on if they actually get where they're going and if they're able to deliver, but we learn a lot about both people and their past and why they're running from the things they're running from in this particular issue. Terror War, issue 9 from Image Comics. This is our wrap-up of Terror War, and if you haven't been following along with this story, you may not know that this is kind of a more action-packed Ghostbusters. This is about a group of people who live in a world where people's nightmares are coming to life, and they're kind of just ransacking the city and destroying things. And this group of people whose job it's always been to take the terrors out get brought in by the government to destroy the terrors that are going to take down, like, this last part of the city where all the rich and famous people live. And they're like, oh, you have to protect it. And they're like, what about the slums? You've never really protected them. You've never protected us. And they're like, well, if you do this, then we'll help you. We find out there's government corruption, and the terrors are not necessarily what we thought they were, nor are the people. And so in this issue, we get to see kind of the wrap-up of what they're going to do and how this war is actually going to go down and who the real villains really are. So if you haven't read it yet, all 9 issues are out now. Or, of course, you can wait a few months and get a collected version. World Tree, issue 8 from Image Comics. Every time I think that World Tree is getting close to an end, James Tynion kind of just pushes it completely away from the ending. Like, I swear, like, he like wants to, he's so good at dragging you along thinking like, oh, I'm about to get that conclusion I've been waiting for. And then just completely twisting it. And this is no different. If you haven't been reading World Tree, we have been following a world where we have figured out like there is an undernet, the dark web, so to speak. And when people view it, they start losing their mind and killing people. And there is a group of people that when they were younger, they were all like kind of the brightest minds in tech, coming up and coming, and they built out a way to protect the world from the internet. They built this world tree. But now, years later, people are finally starting to discover the internet again, and there is kind of a group of people who are ushering that negativity back into the world and this danger. And this team has been brought back together in a way to try to figure out if they can stop the internet from taking over. And we've seen kind of a lot of loss. And in this issue, we kind of get a little more about who all of the other characters are and how they might actually be able to stop the situation. And we learned that, you know, nobody's really trustworthy in the world. And we're going to find out if this team of people can actually come together and make a difference, or if we're just at a point where society is just too far gone. The Nasty, issue 7 from Vault Comics. This is part of Vault's Nightfall imprint, which is their horror side of their trifecta of comic styles. But this is all about a group of people who they're super obsessed with horror movies, and they wanted to bring one of the video nasties, one of the worst movies, you know, that super banned, like if you watch, like nobody should ever see this tape. They find one and they're like, ooh, we're going to save our video store by playing this at a festival. Well, of course, the very first day when they try to watch that video, they end up, the VCR eats it. And so now they've been spending the last 7 issues creating their own story and their own movie, because, you know, if nobody's ever seen it, who would know what was actually on the tape? Well, the thing is when you need a villain, you kind of turn to whatever you know best. And our main character has an imaginary friend who happens to be a very nasty character in and of itself, a very much Jason Voorhees kind of guy. And he has come out of his imagination and is now a part of this world. And can you control that? Can you make it work? Can they make this movie and save the day? Can they shut down this lady who believes that like all videos are bad and all kids who are falling into film deserve to be like just completely rewritten? We're going to find out, because I believe we have 1 issue left of this, so we're going to see how it goes. Prometheus in Chains, issue 6 from Red 5 Comics, and this is our wrap up to this series. Maybe they opened up an entire new world in this issue. As they're telling us like this is the last one, they've completely opened up like a whole new story in here, and I was like, you can't leave us like this, that's just mean. But if you don't know, this is this is a reference to Frankenstein, and this is Victor and Elizabeth Frankenstein are actually in the more modern times. They're in the time of the atom bomb, and they're actually working on the creation of that. And Elizabeth ends up passing away from cancer, and Victor is like, I have to save Elizabeth. I have to figure it out. And so all of his Frankensteinian research actually goes towards bringing his wife back. Over the course of the last 6 issues, he's kind of been losing his mind, and we're not really sure, like, did he bring her back? Did he not bring her back? Is this like another world where he's envisioning what it would be like if he brought her back? Is she really a monster? Is he the monster? You know, the usual Frankenstein questions. But in this issue, they bring about a person from another, like, parallel world who is a Dracula, which is basically just a strong, powerful woman and kind of a queen of her society. And they're like, hey, we need your help, and if you can help us, we can give you a world where Elizabeth is back. And so Victor has to make some very tough choices. And again, is he the monster? Is he the man? Is the thing that he has to decide for himself in this series, more so than us getting to decide for him. Met Cadets, issue 6 from Boom Studios. So if you are watching the Netflix show, Met Cadets, Met Cadet U, all of that is based on this same universe, which did start with Met Cadet U, but if you've never read that, you're not going to be lost. You can jump into Met Cadets perfectly as it is. But this is a story of a bunch of kids who fly in these mech suits. They are supposed to be an army within our army who use all of the mech suits to save us from these alien races. And while they have been not necessarily following the rules that their general has given them, which has left them grounded, except one of the kids has found out that her dad has been taken by the aliens, and she is determined to save him and to save all of the world, because by finding out that her dad was taken by the aliens, she's found out that there is a whole race of people, of alien people, who are coming for them, and the only ones who can stop it are these kids. And we get to see them, you know, make the right choices for themselves and make the right choices for the world, and go against that leadership in this issue and figure out like how they're going to save the day. And so if you just want a fun adventure story that just gives kids all the powers of riding in a mech suit and making decisions and going against adults who make poor decisions, Mech Cadets is definitely a fun one for that. Project Cryptid, issue 6 from Ahoy Comics. I was really excited about this one because I love the cryptid stories. We always get 2 different cryptids at least in every one of these anthologies. Another one of those books that you could just pick up at any time and jump in. But I'm super excited for this one because the first story is from our friend Matt Bors, who we got to hang out with at Comics Pro. He is the creator of Justice Warriors, which is a series that I absolutely adore from Ahoy. And he wrote a story in here about a chupacabra, and I love Matt because he always has to make things also about how like crazy and, you know, bad decisions that humans make, and that is exactly the case. We find a woman who is working for a very strange, eccentric rich man, and she's starting to think maybe he is the chupacabra, and she's got to take him down. And so she starts doing some research to figure out what exactly is going on, and we get a very fun, strange story. And then the backstory is all about a kid who is determined to be the influencer that finds the original Bigfoot. We've got a new Sasquatch type character that has been found, and all these influencers are trying to cover it, and he's like, you can't get the good story when everybody's there. So he goes after the original Bigfoot, and when he finds him, it doesn't necessarily work out the way he thinks. And both stories kind of lead us to remind us that people make some really bad choices, and the ones in power are often the ones who know more than they should and don't let on the way they should share that information. Harriet Tubman Demon Slayer, issue 6 from Massive Publishing. If you are a fan of Abraham Lincoln Vampire Slayer, this is going to have a very similar feel to that, except you get to see Harriet Tubman kick some butt, which I absolutely love seeing. This story started with a family of people who are escaping from slavery, and they are rescued by one Harriet Tubman, who happens to be a woman who fights demons, and basically everybody in the South is either a vampire or a werewolf or something, some kind of demon. And so Harriet has been on the run. Not only is she leading the Freedom Trail, but she is also helping people get away from demons and taking them out. And because of that, she now has a bounty on her head from every demon in the world chasing her down. And so in the last issue, we saw the young girl that she was supposed to be rescuing get attacked by some people. And so in this issue, Harriet is trying to do what she needs to do to make sure that that girl survives and stays safe. And so we're going to see her take on some new challenges and some new people. And poor Harriet, every time she's got a plan, it does not seem to go the way she thinks it's going to. Next, I'm going to flip this back because this is just a protective cover because this is such a glossy cover. But we have Winter Ember issue 6 from Iga Manga. This is the story of a guy who was that rich kid who never did anything for himself. And in the very first issue, a group of people attack his house and they take out his whole family, and they almost destroy him too, but a woman saves him, and now he has been in training to become an assassin. It's got a very Assassin's Creed feel to it, if you've ever played that game, or but he is definitely somebody who is training to be an assassin, and he's kind of like, I don't really care, I'm not a good person. But now for the first time, he's starting to hesitate and think maybe that's not who he wants to be, because the person that he sent to kill is a woman who has done absolutely nothing wrong, and he wants to save this woman and protect her in whatever way he can, and a new relationship is formed. And the thing about it is that the people who have trained him are also the only people who have the stuff that can keep him alive. And so is he going to be able to survive without them? Does he have to just do what they say in order to live? We're going to see as the story continues to unfold. Also, they've been doing these a lot for different publishers recently. It's just a protective, perforated cover, and they do have instructions on the back for how to take it off. So if you ever buy one of the books that have this special cover that just keeps the books from sticking together when they ship in the boxes, that's all this is. It doesn't change the value if you take it off. Once you put it in a bag and board, it's totally fine, but it's just to keep them from sticking. So there are instructions on how to easily do that. Deep Cuts, issue 5 from Image Comics and the Black Market Narrative imprint. This is one of the few books on the Black Market Narrative imprint that has absolutely nothing to do with the Radiant Black universe. So if you're like, I really like Kyle Higgins, but I'm not into Radiant Black, that's totally fine. There's a story for you here, especially if you are a music lover. This is another anthology series that you can pick up any issue at any time and be super dive in, just love it. And this one is about the 1960s, and it's about a guy who is a music critic. And he is always known for all of his good stories and everything he does, but he's also known for being a complete and total drunk and a complete screw up. And so he ends up losing the story that he's supposed to do, which is the headlining story for the magazine he works for. And they assigned him a story for a jazz artist, and he absolutely hates jazz, especially free jazz. And so he goes in with a really negative attitude towards doing this story. And as he starts exploring the music in his own personal way, using his vices to help him explore it, he actually realizes that there's more to jazz, and there's more to this particular jazz musician than he ever gave credit to. And he starts really getting into it. I love this acid trip, literally. That he has, but he starts getting into the music and starts researching it and learning a lot about himself and learning a lot about where the music comes from and about the experience, and he ends up writing an incredible story. And what I love that they did is they actually give us the story in the panels. They write in the story that he ends up writing, so you get to see what it is he said that was so impactful to the world, and you kind of get to just have those same experiences with him. And every issue of Deep Cuts has been amazing. It's made me want to fall in love with music in a whole different way by seeing all these stories, and so definitely check it out. Speaking of music, we've got The Prism, issue 5 from Ablaze Comics. This is all about a group of people who are brought together to form a super band because the entire world is going to be destroyed, and the only thing that can save us is supersonic sound systems. And so they need to bring the best of the best from every band, every performer, put them together and make the ultimate rock group to go out into space and perform in a place where they can essentially send these sonic vibes out into the universe and save everybody. But of course, if you bring a bunch of really talented, really big egoed people together in a room, it's not necessarily going to work out. And so in the last issue, they figured out that they do actually have to give these musicians room to learn to work together. And we're starting to see exactly how that's going to work out for them in this issue. Simon Says, issue 5 from Blood Moon Comics. This is actually kind of like the start of a new arc. So it will tell you on here that it's issue 1, but collected 5, which I love. That is a way to kind of describe it. Like, hey, we're starting a new arc, but it is still issue 5 of the series. And this is all about a guy named Simon who, in the very first issue, seems like he's got a dual personality because he is hearing voices in his head. And so it's like, is it differential personality disorder or differential identity disorder, or is he actually hearing some kind of demon voice in his head? And over the course of the last 5 issues, we have learned that there is, in fact, a demon that is trying to claim Simon and trying to force him into doing all of his dark deeds. And Simon has come to his awakening at this point, and he doesn't want to risk hurting anybody else. And so as he gets to a point where he can't really control it, he's starting to cut ties with all the people that have actually been helping him. Meanwhile, we also have a group of very angry detectives and SWAT people who are hunting Simon down, and he's going to have to go to war, maybe with regular humans, maybe with a whole demonic force, and he's going to have to learn to trust some people if he's going to make it out for sure. Slow Burn, issue 5 of 5 from Boom Studios. This is the wrap-up of this story. It is all about a girl who is raised by a mob father who just doesn't care about her, doesn't ever pay attention to her, or her brother who's been in the hospital. And she's tired of the way he treats everybody around them, so she decides she's going to rob him and run away. And so she ends up stealing this violin that is supposed to be able to, like, change the world, which is really interesting because we actually never really see anything happen with the violin, which is a thing that I feel like you need to know. Like, it's not going to turn into a supernatural story about this violin. But she ends up on the run, and she comes to this small town and ends up pairing up with this girl who's like, there's nobody here. The town's kind of like Silent Hill. It's a mining town that has just gone to nothing. And she's like, well, I can hide out here, but hiding out from somebody who runs the mob doesn't last long. And so this is essentially our showdown of the girl and her father and everybody else connected to the story as they try to figure out who is going to be on what side and where everything's going to fall. And I love the nice ending that could lead us to more story if they really wanted to as we get towards that ending. The Edge, issue 5 from Comicsburg. We got to see these guys up in Pittsburgh, which was really cool. This is one of their big superhero stories for the Comicsburg publishing company. And we're kind of seeing a new arc for this as well with this. We've kind of had, they were fighting each other, and there was a lot of infighting, trying to figure out, like, where the teams were going to align. And in this story, we're seeing them start again, essentially. We're seeing the new team, the way that they're going to be. They've been given a role with the government, funding it a little bit, and they're training in their facilities. And then they get a call that they need to go out and do the job that they're hired to do. But when they get out there, they're not really prepared for what's coming for them. And so this team that's just kind of getting back on its feet is already starting to see itself struggling with what's going on. If you like the classic, big action superhero stories, this is definitely the one to pick up from Comicsburg. Edenwood, issue 5 from Image Comics, and half of your Noctera team, Tony S. Daniel. This is about a world where it's our world, but essentially there's been a fight between demon and witches that has been raging for so long that it started to spill over into the regular human world. And if you're too close to it, you actually get sucked into it. And so a group of teenagers who were out, like, hanging out in the woods one day have been sucked into this battle that is happening. And now they've all playing different roles. They're all playing different roles. They've all kind of been there too. It's weird because it's like however close you were when you got sucked into it, you end up in, like, I've been here 100 years, and they're like, oh, I've only been here like 10 years. And so they have all different stories, and they've all lived different lives. But we have one guy who's determined to find his girlfriend and save her from what has been going on, and he has become a demon killer. And is the one who can change everything. He's the only one who controls the book, who can make the story really, really matter and really make a difference in this war between these demons and witches. But in this issue, we definitely learn that there's a reason why he's the chosen one, and the things that he was chosen for might not be the things that he thought they were. So, if you like fantasy action, if you were a fan of Scott Snyder and Tony S. Daniel's Noctera, this is definitely a cool one to pick up. And it's kind of like, honestly, like, I mean, if you like Demon Slayer, this definitely has a little bit of that feel in comic form. So, it's a good crossover for a lot of different genres. Beowulf, issue 5, also from Comicsburg. This is a modern retelling of the classic story of Beowulf. If you know it, you're going to recognize it. But you get your lovable loser, your guy who hasn't really amounted to much, and somehow he is this person that's supposed to be our hero, our champion, that's going to go fight this dragon that is chasing everybody. And he finds that out because a young girl and her cat, who happens to be like the guardian of everybody, who happens to be able to talk and is incredibly adorable, leads them to that place and kind of trains him on how he is supposed to be this dragon hunter. But so he goes back, gets sucked back in time, is fighting a dragon in a different point in time in life, and it is not going well for anyone. I love seeing our cat be threatening. Like, they corner somebody at one point, and the cat is like, you need to do exactly exactly what I say, or I'm gonna like take you down. And they're like, look at you, you're so cute and threatening, you adorable creature. I love it. Anytime a cat is the hero of the story, it's gonna be a great story. But we're slowly seeing our human hero figure himself out, and as he is kind of getting grounded, I guess I should say, in the olden times that he's been sucked back to, things seem to be falling apart more and more in the modern times, and so he is going to have to connect those bridges as soon as possible if we are going to save the day in both time periods. Midlife, or How to Be a Hero at 50, issue 5 from Image Comics. This is the story of a man who is a firefighter, and his dad before him was a firefighter and is a legacy firefighter because he passed away like on the job and everybody loved him. He was the best of the best. Well, what he also learns around his 50th birthday is that the reason his dad was so good at what he did is because his dad had superpowers, and now he does too. He has the ability to control fire, to withstand it, to push it in different places. And so a guy who has been a firefighter and never actually braved a fire because he was always afraid of it has now become somebody who can control it and is working as a superhero instead of working as a firefighter to kind of save the day for the people around him. And we find out that there is a secret society that is coming for him, and he has been interviewing this person that he has kidnapped from that society. And we finally learn the backstory of where all these powers come from in this issue, and I can't wait to see where it goes, because it was such an interesting mythology. They did it in such a different way than everybody else's superpower situation, and so I can't wait to see what they do with that and how this hero is going to continue to find himself within that. Knights, issue 5, also from Image Comics. And just before I go too far, this is actually issue 1 of Knights is actually our book club book for the month of March. So if you want to check it out, you can come grab a copy of Knights number 1 and meet us on the 20th to talk about it. But if you haven't read it, Knights is the story of a group of kids who are living on their own in a city. One is a skeleton, one is a vampire, one is a kid who seems to be wrapped up in all kinds of problems working with gangs and dealing drugs, and one is his cousin who has come to live with him and is in love with the vampire friend. And he's finally getting to the point where he thinks he needs to actually admit that to her and tell her exactly how he feels. He's so stoked. This is the night he's going to do that. And something goes incredibly wrong. We find out that there is way more to what being a vampire means in this world. And while we've always thought that every town had a vampire and every vampire was just working for their livelihood as a vampire, that's not, in fact, the case, and we are going to see whether or not they can save Grey the vampire, or whether or not Grey can save herself, and where this is going to go. I constantly say this book feels like if you made a modern American Miyazaki film, this is what it would be, because you've got that weird connection, like you've got a skeleton guy, you've got a vampire, you've got like these creatures that shouldn't really exist in the real world that somehow just do, and they have normal everyday lives, but then bad decisions from somebody can lead to completely like demons like popping up out of nowhere, or your choices lead you down way crazy paths. And so it does, and yet there's still heart in every issue. And so if you are a fan of Miyazaki but you want it to feel like it takes place in modern American culture, this is what you would get. Lotus Land, issue 4 from Boom Studios. This is about a man who used to be a detective in the city and worked really deep into everything that was going on with what made this modern city so segregated and so controlled. And then he left everything except for his son and went to live off the grid, while his wife, his child's mother, decided to stay in town. Well, he gets to notice that something has gone wrong in the town, and if he doesn't come back, it could end up affecting him and his kid. And so he goes back to try to solve this case, feeling like it's the only thing he can do to protect his family. And while he's there, he has gotten further and further into the situation, and now he is kind of the only person who is positively looking for the solution to what's going on, and it's not going well for him. I really hope that he makes it out alive, but also as we follow along as readers, we see that his son is having his own discoveries of different kinds, and they are going to get everybody in trouble, possibly. So definitely check that out. I'm going to take another drink of this delicious Frankenrocker and the Jailbait Punks wine from our friends at Bad Kids Press. Gosh, it's so good. It smells good. We were just talking about this the other day, that we don't take the time to smell our wine like fully. This actually smells really, it smells more florally to me than it tastes. And this is actually, it is actually imported. So it is a French wine that they import in and then brand with the Bad Kids Press titles. So it's really cool that they're actually getting these French wines imported. And I believe it's Bob that actually used to work in wine, and so is helping make these flavors for each thing, which is super cool. And Bob, if you're watching, you can totally correct me, but I think it's Bob that makes some of the flavors. All right. Next up, we have A Haunted Girl, issue 4 from Image Comics, and this is a G imprint. And this book is the end of this series, and also it is the book that made me cry this week. So that there's always one each week. This was definitely the one. This is written by Ethan Sachs and his teenage daughter Naomi, and it is about a girl who, at the very beginning of issue 1, has been put inside of a hospital, an institution, because she attempted to commit suicide. And she has been let out and is supposed to be trying to just get her life back into normal situations, like going to school and things like that. And the reason she was struggling is because she was having these strange visions, and she wasn't doing well with what was going on in her life, and she kind of feels alone. She has her dad, who we learn a lot about in this issue, but it was just something that she wasn't really able to handle. Well, when she gets out and she starts having these visions again, she starts seeing this little ghost boy who leads her down a path and tells her basically, like, you're the only person who can stop this evil ghost witch lady, and if you don't stop her, she's going to destroy the entire world, and you have to do it. And they end up going to the place where this evil witch lady is and fighting her, and it's just absolutely beautiful because they end up like that the fight is, you know, there's nobody wants you here. There's no point in being here. You have nothing to live for. And she has to start trying to remember all of the good things in life that she absolutely loves and all the people that love her, and just start focusing on them and trying to overcome that. And it's such a beautiful story because Naomi Sachs has had the struggles with depression and anxiety and wanted to tell this story, and you see that allegory of the depression come through this story of her being haunted, like she's haunted by her depression in the same way that she's haunted by these ghosts, and just putting it all together was an absolutely incredibly beautiful story. And one of the things that I do love, there's multiple parts in this book where they do this. And it is in every issue, but they always give you some resources in case you are somebody who is struggling with mental health. And in this one, they talked about, we talk about illnesses and how we need to go to the doctor and things when you don't feel good, but we don't talk about mental illness as something that we need to actually seek help for as often as we should. And so I think that it's such a great conversation in the story, a well-written story, and then a beautiful story of a father and daughter just realizing each other and how much they love each other. Haunted House, a love story, issue 4 from Blood Moon Comics. This is what happens when love goes too far from the point of view of a house. This is about a house that was built by a man, and it loved that man and its creator, and it thought everything was wonderful and beautiful and they would be together forever. But in issue 1, the man grows old and he dies. And now the house has spent generations after generations being angry that other people would come to live there and just wants its original owner back. And in this issue, a strange man who has continuously popped up throughout the years has come again and is like, I can help you get your owner back. I can help you get your man that you love so much to return. But you have to do something for me. And a group of paranormal investigators show up. And he tries to pit this couple against each other. And the house is trying to use its powers to make them hate each other. But even when they fight, this couple realizes that the only thing that really matters is each other. And so they start battling back against the house. And it's great to see this house like really lose it every once in a while, and like the hauntedness of it. And it's nice because if you've ever been in a haunted house and you've always been like, I wonder what the house is thinking, it's kind of cool to see the haunted house story from the haunted house's point of view. The Sickness, issue 4 from Uncivilized Books. This is a crazy book. If you have not read The Sickness, now that there's 4 issues out, now is a great time to get it and read 4 of them at the same time, because this is one of those stories where you kind of need to keep them close at hand before, or like reread the last of the one you read when you jump into the next one, because there's so much in it. It is 2 stories like blended together. There is a kid in 1945 who has been having these terrible visions. Everybody doesn't really know what's wrong with him. He's very just losing his mind, essentially, from all of these visions that he's having of people's faces melting off and terrible things going on. And his friends are starting to finally believe him and want to help him. And so in this issue, they're like, hey, we're going to help you take down this invisible thing that is tormenting you. At the same time, we're seeing a story from 1955 of a man named George who is investigating a story of people who have had that exact sickness, that experience of seeing visions, and have started like killing people or themselves. And this is actually the only place in the entire series that color has ever existed, is this little tiny bit of blood on this knife, which was super cool and super shocking to finally see that little tiny bit of color. But we are watching as George tries to piece it together, and whether or not it's going to drive him insane. Like, he doesn't see the things they do, but he's trying to piece all of it together. So he's kind of losing his own mind as he worries about the sickness. And the 2 stories run parallel together, blending together. Like, one page you're in Daniel's story, the next you're in George's story, and you kind of see both of them losing it and going mad. And it's wicked the way they design the sickness and the things that happen and the little things that are in the background. Like, it's very much that same kind of horror that you get from a Junji Ito manga blended into this story, because suddenly there's just like these little tiny faces or things that are popping up out of the ground, and like it's drawn in there in a way where you're like, you have to stare at it for a while and take everything in. Super cool, very popular story here at Bad City. So if you haven't read it yet, I strongly recommend you pick it up. The Holy Roller, issue 4 from Image Comics, and Andy Samberg, who you may know from Lonely Island or Saturday Night Live, working with Rick Remender. And they are using their humor to tell you a story about a man who does not agree with racism in any way, shape, or form, and is going to take matters into his own hands. It is all about a guy who had run away from his home because he didn't want to be connected with his dad, who was just known as like this amateur bowler and had made his name in the town like that. And they just hated the town. And so the kid runs away. Now he's come back because he's learned that his dad isn't doing well. And if he doesn't return, he won't get a chance to say goodbye. Only to find out that all of the racist people in his town have now completely taken over. They run everything. And they just go around and beat people and take their businesses and do awful things. And he's like, hey, I'm not going to let that happen. I've got to do something about it. So he becomes a vigilante that uses a bowling ball or multiple bowling balls as his weapon of choice. It is comical. It is heartfelt. It is, I can't show you, I don't want to show you that page. It is, everything you would expect from Andy Samberg with Rick Remender guiding him, to write a story. And I really, honestly and truthfully, this issue for me was the big turning point. Like, most of the first couple issues have been really highlighting on the jokes and bringing you that Andy Samberg humor. But this one was finally like, hey, we have something to say about how people who are terrible need to have terrible things come at them, and we're gonna make it happen. And you get a good vigilante story in this, and it's fantastic. You should check it out. Siphon, Volume 2, Issue 4, from Image Comics and Top Cow Comics, which a lot of people see it on the shelf and are like, whoa, Top Cow's back? Yes, they are. They are still making comics through the Top Cow imprint. And this, like I said, is Volume 2. You do need to read Volume 1 to understand what is going on. But you should check it out. This was a Ringo Award winner, which is Indie Comics Awards, for Favorite Hero last year. And it is about a guy who has the power to literally siphon other people's emotions. He can feel what you're feeling. He can kind of control what you're feeling. Is just very empathetic to the power of actually having powers from it. And in this volume, he has been called on to go to fight in the big war of the powers, of where the powers come from, and kind of make sure that the evil doesn't come up and take over the world in a negative way. And so he has actually had to make the choice to become an actual hero and not just use the power as a paramedic or as a local hero. And so in this, we're seeing a very big story. We learn all about where the powers come from, and we get to see him make some choices and learn what those choices actually are for people who can experience things. We also learn that he wasn't necessarily their first choice for the powers, and what does that mean when you weren't the one that the powers wanted, but you're the one that the powers got? How do you feel about yourself and using that, especially when you have the power of experiencing emotions? Up next, we have Darkwing Duck's Negaduck, the villain from Darkwing Duck, getting his own title. This is issue 4 from Dynamite and their Disney Comics imprint. If you are a fan of Darkwing Duck and you're not reading the Darkwing Duck comics main title, you're missing out on essentially the continuation. In the way that the Buffy the Vampire comics were just like season 7 or season 8 of Buffy, Darkwing Duck comics are kind of like the next season of Darkwing Duck. And this is just kind of a Negaduck experience. He has broken out of prison and has learned that he needs to find a big cape, that's not the word, caper is the word I'm looking for. He needs to find something that he can do that puts him back on top as the best villain in town. And so he starts looking into some other people's works, and he finds out that Midas's Golden Touch is actually essentially an infinity gauntlet, and he is going to steal it. And so he organizes the team of the usual fearsome 5 kind of guys and takes them out to this island to find it. And they have now found it and are trying to get back to Cape Canard, or St. Canard, what's the name of the city? Whatever. To battle. It is St. Canard, to battle against everyone and also just be the richest ducks in the world. And he learns that he might have been a pawn in somebody else's plan, and he is very not happy about that. And so we are going to see Negaduck get some vicious attacks and start trying to fight back. And maybe, just maybe, we're going to have a lot of laughs while it happens. Again, if you're a fan of Darkwing Duck, you should definitely be reading these. They feel exactly like watching the show, and having a whole 4-issue run of just seeing what the villains are up to is super cool, and we're going to get even more of that because it is to be continued. Dead Detective issue 4 from Black Box Comics. This is about a detective whose partner is murdered, and while he's investigating it, ends up going through a very demonic looking ceremony and tunnel, and comes out on the other side in essentially purgatory, where he finds out that people live there and there's a whole new city of crime that he needs to help and solve some problems if he's going to get back. And so they basically have to solve his case on the afterlife side in order to get back to what is going on in reality, except demons run amok, and they are trying to make things hard. There's corruption in the police force on this side as well, and his own partner might be making some terrible decisions that are going to lead them both into more danger. If you like detective team up movies and things like that, you're definitely going to want to pick this one up, especially because it does have that little darker edge to it with them being in the afterlife. Happy Astronaut, issue 4 from Keen Spot. This is one of those Keen Spot books that is definitely appropriate for all ages, but has a lot of like that Shrek style adult humor. This is about an astronaut named Happy who is just trying to go through space and live his life. He actually went out into space for some peace and quiet and was joined by somebody who he never really has gotten along with. And now they're kind of at the point where it's like, hey, I want to do something nice for you. And the guy's like, I didn't even think you liked me being here. Meanwhile, their former buddy that they used to run around with has turned into the bad guy and is now evil and is working with the ultimate evil to destroy a planet, the very planet that Happy needs to go to in order to do the nice thing for his buddy. And so they are going to have to figure out how to get there before bad things happen, maybe stop the bad things from happening. We don't know. We're going to figure it out as Happy does. But it's just cute to see him actually starting to like make some friends and the two get together. Godzilla War for Humanity, issue 4 from IDW. This is one of the coolest looking Godzilla books on the shelf right now. This is about a mom who is obsessed with Godzilla, has been doing TED Talks and things on Godzilla and how he's here for humanity and wants to save them. And now we have a Zoospora is here and is trying to take out all of the kaiju, is turning them into evil, and so now they're all attacking things, and she's like, the only thing that will actually save us is to bring out Godzilla, but Godzilla is like not interested in getting involved, and so this woman's secret plan is to steal Manila, baby Godzilla, and bring him into the fray so that if Godzilla finds out that they're in trouble, he'll come save them. And so they have done that, and now these people are trying to use Godzilla and Manila as bait to fight against these other creatures as they use their mech suit, and it is not working, and now Godzilla might be in danger, and Mothra is in danger, and I get very nervous when Mothra is in danger. And not only that, but the woman's daughter feels like the woman is making bad choices by putting Manila in danger, and how she doesn't necessarily care about children in the way that she should. And so family dynamics also come into play as these two kind of figure out how they're going to save humanity and each other and Manila. Let's be honest, we really just need to save baby Godzilla. Charred Remains, issue 3 from Mad Cave Comics. We got to hang out with our good friends from Mad Cave while we were gone at Comics for last week, and I'm so excited we did. There's so many great things coming from Mad Cave right now. This is just one of the many. This is about a girl who, when she was little, saw a fire happen. It kind of took out all of her family, and she believed that there was a man in the fire that was the problem, that was attacking people. And now, as an adult, she kind of fire chases. She shows up to where the firefighters are getting calls. She has her own radio where she's listening to it, and she's determined to find this fireman who is taking out all of these people. And we also recently found out that there is a firefighter who has started to see the very same things. He's starting to have terrible visions and isn't sure what is going on for himself. And so these two paths are crossing. And in this issue, things really start to heat up. Pun definitely intended, as all of the stations are having people coming in with flames and trying to burn them down, and these firefighters are trying to catch all of them, but they can't be in everywhere at the same time. And so she learns that there is a whole cult of people who are worshiping this fireman, and is she going to be able to stop them and him? We're going to find out, hopefully, but it is getting dark in there. I'm going to take another drink because this wine's so good. I'm going to bring it over here too because you got to see this label, which is also the cover of Frank and Rocker and the Jailbait Punks if you haven't seen the book yet. All right. Next up, we have Invasive issue 3 from Oni Press. This is all about a woman and a man who have been trying to do an investigation because her daughter was attacked by some people who did unelected surgery on her. And this man had also investigated some people who had done this to a boy. And the police end up dropping their investigation years ago, and now this team has kind of gotten back together, and they are finally starting to find clues about this group of people who may be just kind of stealing people and doing all kinds of terrible things to them. We're starting to get some clues that are really leading us in the right direction finally, and as that happens, we lead us down a path that is possibly not something we're going to come back from. There's a lot of bad that can definitely happen as this story unfolds, and you are going to have to take these people down in the worst way possible, and I want to see how they do it for sure. But it kind of has a little bit of a Dr. Sleep feel to it, with people trying to manipulate and steal people, and the way that like the cult like feel of the people moving through it. And so why are these people doing these surgeries? What is going on? Like, we actually haven't investigated any of that yet. We're just trying to find them and figure out what they're doing. So I'm curious to see if Cullen Bunn's going to give us a reason behind it, or if it's just going to be like, we caught them and we stopped them, and we're never going to know like why these people were doing bad things, which I'm kind of into. I feel like we always over-explain things, so it'd be fun if we had some books where we didn't really like put it all in there. Up next, we have Dr. Corvus. There's Children of the Abyss, issue 3 from Fantico. This is a novel by Eric Stanway that is being adapted into a comic book form. And this is all about a man named Dr. Corvus, who is kind of your paranormal investigator, essentially, like very Sherlock Holmes-esque for the time period. And he has been currently investigating these weird zombie-like creatures that are coming out. Like, they kind of are vampires, they're kind of zombies. It spreads like zombieism through the town, and him and his pet rat Plato have been the ones kind of investigating everything that's going on. And they have a man that is working with them, and the more they get into it, the further this thing seems to spread, and people keep challenging them. And in this issue, Dr. Corvus finds out that a woman has risen from the morgue, and when he goes to approach the doctors about it, the whole hospital seems to be out of control. And we find out that there's this evil like demon entity that they all seem to be worshiping and calling for, and Dr. Corvus is like, I'm gonna have to handle this situation. They all seem to go by the river, and so we get this epic showdown that does not go well for anybody. And Dr. Corvus always ends up stuck in a crazy situation. I will actually show you like this one page because it's crazy. He always ends up stuck in a situation that it's like, this man is not getting out of this in any way, shape, or form. And every issue starts like right back where it left off, for Dr. Corvus is like, oh yes, let me come up with this weirdly elaborate, non-elaborate plan that is going to get us out of this terrible situation that I put us into before. I love it because, again, he's like half Sherlock Holmes, half aloof to the situation all at the same time. It's fun. It's almost like Doctor Who as well, like with that kind of personality. We've got Basic Instinct, issue 3 from Sumerian. If you are a fan of the Basic Instinct movie, this is much like American Psycho. It's kind of a different take or a side story, essentially, to what you're used to. This is following a man who is actually, like, connected. Like, he's being summoned by the Sharon Stone character from Basic Instinct. But he is an artist who, in the very first issue, a person was murdered at his art gallery. And now we found that somebody else close to him has been murdered. And so the police are investigating him, thinking he is tied up in all these murders, trying to figure it out. But he knows that he's being watched by this woman who you know, is up to something strange, and she's calling him in and she's doing all this stuff, and he's like, where is this going? Why are these people coming after me? And so the police kind of come to the point where it's like either he is going to kill someone else or he is going to be killed, and we don't really know which way this is going. I like it because since it's following him, it's a detective story, but it's following him, which is an interesting way to do it. You know, we're always seeing the police, and we kind of get the police blotter notes on top of his story, but the story is told from his point of view at the same time. So it's a really cool way to do a police story, because we know what he's up to and what he's not up to, but we also get to see those police trying to figure it out at the same time. So it's a really interesting way to do that kind of story. The Agent, issue 3 from Ablaze. I love that the tagline on the back of this book is "You are not prepared." What a great way to draw people into your story, because, you know, you're definitely not. This is the story of a woman who works for the police agency. She's, you know, just a typical agent kind of detective kind of person. And in the first issue, she thinks she's tracking down somebody who is just selling drugs. But it turns out like there's more to him than meets the eye. And he's kind of selling, maybe it's drugs, but maybe they're not the drugs she thinks they are. And she ends up being approached by a man who's like, hey, I'm from this agency. We want to work with you. We need to bring you in. And then when she gets actually started working with him, he's like, oh, by the way, the agency, it's magic. Magic is real. That's why nobody saw what you saw. You have magic. You may, in fact, be a witch and you didn't know it. And everything that you've ever heard of exists, and you're going to have to deal with it. But I love it because usually once that happens in comic books, you kind of fall further into like a little bit more supernatural. You kind of fall into almost sometimes a little bit, it'll get a little bit cheesier, or it'll get a little bit like focused too far into that. This actually still stays feeling really serious and really like spy movie kind of situation. Like this is like Mission Impossible level spyness, but, or Jason Bourne kind of spyness, but there's magic involved with it. And so it's like while they're investigating things, it seems like you're still on this investigation and you're doing all of that, but it's like, oh, well, actually that thing's actually connected to magic and you just didn't know that. But good job, you're a great detective. So I love the seriousness that they're taking on this story with. It definitely keeps that element of action going with it. Unnatural Order, issue 3 from Vault Comics. I do not know why I just stared at that so long like I didn't know what it was. This is your fantasy side of Vault. We had our horror side earlier. This is going to be one of our fantasy books. And at the same time, kind of a sci-fi story. This is about a druid who has all of the dark magic. He's upset the natural order of the world because he is known for being like the ultimate, like, bad magic, bad everything. Or at least that's what we thought in issue 1, because we had a ragtag team of people, which if you attended our book club, you know, we dissected them and we were like, none of these people are from the same time period. Like, not only are they not from the same place, but none of the stuff they're saying is even from the same time. What is going on here? How is this happening? And then at the end of issue 1, you get this guy that's from the now, also blended into all these people from like ancient Rome and ancient Britannia and all kinds of crazy places. And in issue 2, we learned that the reason why is because this is nothing that we were told it was in issue 1. This is actually the story of a modern person who is manipulating everything, and he is destroying the natural order of the world and bringing it back into an all kind of blended reality, and what is real and what isn't is something we're actually only finding out in this issue. In fact, I thought everything that I learned in issue 2 told me everything I learned in issue 1 was wrong. And then I read issue 3 and I found out everything I read in issue 2 was also wrong. So, like, what is actually happening? In theory, you find out in issue 3. You get your turn. We'll find out maybe in issue 4 that we were all wrong with all of our predictions again. I love that way to keep us on our toes, way to keep us constantly wondering what is happening and what is real and what isn't. I think we learned it in this issue. I don't know. You read it and you tell me. But it's going to keep you guessing and it's going to keep you going for the whole thing for sure. Skeeters, issue 3 from Mad Cave. This is your classic B-level horror film done in comic form in like one of the most fun ways. You've got a group of people who live in a small town, and in that town there is a research facility, and in that research facility they have been working on doing some experiments on some crazy alien type creature that they found. And as per usual, crazy alien creature escapes. And now town is in danger. And you got like your cops pairing with your guy that's high all the time, and your local community person who's like the great guy in the community, but also is like everybody else in the community is a jerk. Do I really need to help them? But of course, like, gonna make the right choice. And now you've got these monstrous mosquitoes attacking everybody at the annual seafood fest. And I love it because the guy that's high all the time is like, this is a waste of great crab. Like, that's a blue crab right there. Do we have time to stop and eat it? And I'm like, I agree. We should stop and taste the blue crab because it looks really good. And then the blue crab is also like infected with this monstrous bug. It's fantastic. It's so much fun. Seriously, if you just want to like laugh your way through a horror story, get that like almost not quite Shaun of the Dead, but almost that level of comedy towards horror, but really like feel that classic feeling in those like B horror movies that make you just enjoy everything. This is going to be the one. Duke, issue 3 from Image, Skybound imprint, and your Energon universe. That is the world where Transformers and G.I. Joe are crossing over in a major way. And if you have not read Duke yet, in issue 2 of Transformers, we actually got our first appearance of Duke actually flying in to stop the Transformers. Little did we know that that was really going to mess with Duke's head. And he ends up in his first issue going to the military and saying, hey, did you know there are giant alien robots who are fighting against us and we should do something about that? And of course the military is like, we have no idea what you're talking about. That's not a real thing. We're not going to acknowledge it. And so Duke starts, they put him on leave. Duke starts investigating. He finds out that they're lying, which he knew that they were the whole time. Now he's on his own. He's gone rogue. And in the last issue, he was thrown into a prison, and a woman is in the prison next to him, prison cell next to him, and they are like, I can help you get out of here if you want to help me get out of here. And Duke and his buddy are like, we know who you are. You're the Baroness. And I was super excited because that is a character from G.I. Joe that I've always loved. And I got to see her be really awesome in this issue as I expected. But is she going to double cross Duke and everybody else? Probably. I anticipate that coming. But I don't care because I really think that the Baroness is a cool character. And I want to see her be awesome and mess people up, and I think that's going to happen. So if you're a G.I. Joe fan, I'm pretty sure everybody that you've ever liked from G.I. Joe is already starting to make appearances in that issue, or in that series. I guess I showed up. In Duke, there are so many characters that I'm like, I've heard that character's name before on an action figure when I worked in the toy museum. So if you're a G.I. Joe fan, you probably actually remember who they are. I'm not a G.I. Joe fan, and I also am reading these books, and I'm excited. I literally told somebody, I can't believe I haven't read issue 3 of Duke yet, and we're going to talk about issue 2 of Cobra Commander in a minute. I'm not a G.I. Joe fan, and I am reading these books every week that they come out, and I'm excited for them. So even if you're not a Joe fan, even if you're not a Transformers fan, this might be the thing that if you like skirted it and you kind of weren't sure about it, this might be the time that you actually find yourself becoming one. Because they're well-written books. I mean, Joshua Williamson is writing the G.I. Joe stuff, and Daniel Warren Johnson is writing the Transformers stuff. You couldn't have asked for a better team. They're killing it. Up next, we have Eden Frost, issue 3 from Mad Cave. Talk about books that make me want to cry when I read them. This is such a good book, but it is so sad. This is about 2 kids who are Jewish kids in the like Soviet time period, and their entire village has been killed, and for whatever reason these hateful people have destroyed them. We didn't know at the very beginning, but we do actually learn in this issue like why they specifically targeted their village. And now these 2 kids are on the run, and trying to find a place that they can maintain safety. Well, in issue 1, we found out that the young boy has the ability, not controllably, but just somehow, to call forth the golem whenever he is in danger. He doesn't know how to control it. He doesn't know what is happening. But his sister wants him to try, because she is the kind of person who's like, we have to stand up and fight. We have to do something. And the brother is like, my job is to keep you safe. I don't want to stand up and fight unless I have to. But of course, we constantly find ourselves having to fight in this issue. They have been working with this woman who has let them stay with them. She is a drunk. She is a terrible person, but she has let them stay nonetheless. And in this issue, they have finally been found, and they have to figure out, if I show you anything else, it's going to be big spoilers for what happens in this issue, because we do get our turn. As always, issue 3 leads to that turn. It is a very emotional one. It is a very great one. I can't wait to see what this girl does with everything that you see on this cover that comes her way. There are some choices that are made that you have to make when you have to stand and fight and protect yourself. And this book just makes me want to cry every time. It is so beautifully written. It is so well done. And I just want to see these kids safely make it to whatever place they're going to live and be happily ever after. And I know that they're not necessarily going to, and so I'm going to kind of cry even harder. But it is well done. This is such a good book. You should definitely be checking it out. Hack Slash Back to School issue 3 from Image Comics, and comics like prodigy of the year, Zoe Thorogood. She is bringing it back. This is another one. I've never really been a Hack Slash fan, but Zoe Thorogood's name was on it. I checked it out, and now I'm kind of obsessed with it. This is your young adult version of Hack Slash, honestly. We've got a group of young kids, essentially, who have found themselves in a training program to take down the monsters, essentially. And we get to see Cassie Hack, who is our main character from Hack Slash, who is brought into this place to actually train with these other kids. And so you've brought all of the characters that you may have recognized from older Hack Slash books into this as teenage girls, and they are going to a school to learn how to do what they do best, and that is fight monsters. And in this issue, they get a call from a place where they find out that a man is using a strip club to lure women in and create monsters out of them, and they must do their best to fight him and figure out how to stop these monsters from coming about. It's so much fun, honestly and truthfully. It has all of your classic young adult feels. It's got your crazy offbeat monster feels that you get from a Hack Slash book. And you get, Zoe Thorogood's great storytelling and fun art through the whole thing. If you haven't picked it up yet, we're only on issue 3. I highly recommend you do. Even if, like me, you were like, I wasn't really a Hack Slash, it was one of those where I was like, I want more story. Zoe's giving you more story, and you're gonna love it and fall into it. Okay, I'm gonna take another drink for the house. All right, up next we've got Canary, issue 3 from Scott Snyder and Dark Horse. This is Scott Snyder's comicsology books. Dark Horse has been putting all of Scott's comicsology books out in print form, and so each issue is actually 2 issues. So this is the wrap up of the story. What is considered issue 3, is actually like issues 5 and 6 if you read it online. If you didn't, that's okay, because you get it now. And honestly, getting 2 issues for $4.99 is insane. So thank you, Dark Horse, for that. And you get a Scott Snyder story with Dan Panosian art, which is also fantastic. I absolutely love it. And this is the story of a man who is essentially a U.S. Marshal working in the Old West. And he's been made famous for a case that he solved where a man was crazy and he kind of took him out. And so now they've brought him to this town to fight with a geologist who is supposed to be checking into a mine shaft that is poisoning the water and possibly poisoning all the people. And while they're investigating it, they find out that, the woman who's the daughter of the man who like closed the mine, who trapped all the people in there, who did all of the bad things, is here to help them as well. And so this ragtag team of people coming together, making some decisions. We learn that there is a, cult of darkness that has surrounded this community and kind of led to the summoning of a demon that is in this mine, and they are going to have to face it head on in these last 2 issues in this book. And it gets dark, it gets crazy. Dan Panosian's art is just so perfectly well done for this Western book, and bringing in that eerie feeling the whole way. The heavy pencil lines really, really work for the Old West feel, but they also do a great job of bringing in this monstrous experience as well. If you didn't read it, all 3 issues are out now in print form. You can get them and fall in love with it, and then want Scott Snyder to make something else. Because really, have you ever read a Scott Snyder book you didn't like? I don't think you have, because he's so good at everything, and Dan Panosian is a great artist. So put them together, you get a great story. Fantastic. You're gonna grab all 3 at one time, because if you just grab issue 1, you're gonna be like, why didn't I get 2 and 3 when you're done? Because everybody that has grabbed issue 1 has done that. So just save yourself the time and just grab all 3. Speaking of 3-part series, we've got issue 3 of Borealis from Dark Horse. This is the story of a woman who is a state trooper in Alaska, and she has left the place that she is from to go work somewhere else because the place she's from is terrible, and all the people there, small town, they know you, they hold everything that you've ever done against you, and she's been sent by essentially her grandmother to get out of town and go work somewhere else. Well, now the state troopers have sent her back home, and she gets back and learns that there are a lot of people doing a lot of bad things back home. There's the usual gang lineup is still working, running some drugs and some beer and things like that are not allowed in the community through it all. And so she decides she's going to clean up town. And she's going to go after all the people who made her life miserable when she was there, that are still doing bad things to good people. And she's going after all of them, and that's when she learns that she has these mysterious powers. And we learn for the first time in issue 3 where these powers come from. We figure out the connection that they have to her. And even though this series ends, if you told me that we were getting a volume 2 tomorrow, I would not doubt you for a second, because you have opened up a whole mess of new story by the time we get to the end of this, and there is no way this is all. You have to give us more, Dark Horse. We need this creative team back on this book, because I need to know what's happening. I don't know about everybody else, but I personally need to know, so I'm going to need you to make that happen. Spellweaver, issue 2 from Keenspot. This has very much the Stoneheart from Emma Kubert. This feels very similar to that. This is about a young woman who is a witch of some kind. She seems to have these magic powers. She's a spellweaver. And in issue 1, she is supposed to stay where she's at while they deliver some stuff to the local palace area. Ends up finding a woman who is in danger. When she tries to help, things go bad, and now she's kind of in her own, trapped in her own mind, experiencing something in this dark world that she's somehow been drawn into. And in the real world, her partner is trying to figure out how to save her, because he, that's what he does. He protects her, and he feels like he's done a terrible job. The prince is also helping him. We're seeing them come together. They are looking for the only person, the woman of the woods, who can help them. And meanwhile, she is having her own dark adventure that she is going to have to fight through in whatever it is that she is trapped in her mind. This is great. Like I said, it feels very much like Stoneheart, so it's got a very young adult feel to it. So teenagers who are looking for something that's like a good magic story, this is going to be a great one for them, especially if you like the fantasy style stories. St. John, issue 2 from Dark Horse. This has been a minute since we got issue 1. I'm glad we finally got issue 2. I was worried that it was going to be a one-shot for a minute there, because issue 1 did wrap up perfectly where it could have been. But we are getting another story. This follows a woman who is a journalist who is sent out to Portland from New York to investigate the story of a superhero type guy, a man who helps everybody no matter what, and it seems like he can be everywhere at one time, but when she gets there in issue 1, she actually kind of learns that he may just be a regular guy who's just willing to do whatever it takes to protect his city. He seems to have like a weird connection to the town that seems to be a little more than natural, but she can't prove what it is. She can't find anything, and the more she works with him, the more she seems to think he's actually just kind of normal. And in this issue, she's sent back to do more on her story. And while she's there, the entire city of Portland experiences a major snowstorm, which is something that actually happened this year. They experienced this major snowstorm, and power is going out everywhere. People are struggling. And so she ends up working with St. John to help people. And he keeps telling her the city will be there. There will be people, like somehow somebody is going to stand up and help people. And they do actually find the good people of the world. Like Mr. Rogers always says, you look for the helpers. And they do seem to find that. And it's just a positive story about people doing what they can to help the people in their city. And I love that. I live in the friendly city. I live in a place where everybody is so wonderful and amazing all the time. And so it's nice to see a comic about a guy who's like maybe a superhero, but also maybe he's just a guy that realizes the more we do to help other people, the more other people will also help. And then the world can be a better place. And they actually say that in here, like maybe if we all just do our part, that would be enough. And, maybe it would. Ice Canyon Monster, issue 2 from Blood Moon Comics. They say this is great for fans of Cthulhu and monsters in the deep, and it's definitely true. If you haven't dove into this story just yet, we are following a group of people who are on a boat, and a giant monster in the deep has come out and attacked them. And in issue 1, we saw one group of people attacked. Now we are following another boat of people who are out there trying to figure out what is going on with their boat, and all of them get attacked. Turns out there is a connection between group 1 and group 2. So we see what that connection is in this story, and we figure out that somebody is going to have to come in and save these people from this giant monster, because there is, in fact, a giant beast. I was trying to see if I can find a picture of the giant beast, but you know what? You're just going to have to discover it on your own, I guess. But this is, you get your heart in there, you get your connecting pieces, and you honestly get, like, your action. So if you're a fan of something like the Meg, this is going to be a great one for you, because you do have that action-packed, like, giant underwater creature coming for you story. Up next, we have Edie number 2, also from Blood Moon Comics. This is kind of your Blob story. So if you're a fan of the Blob movie, you're going to get something very similar to that. In issue 1, we saw, I'm just going to show you, we saw Edie sneak out to go to a party, and while she was there, something happened, and she started to kind of have these neon green blobby kind of feels take over her. While she was at that party in issue 1, a boy that she has always had a crush on, a very popular boy in school, ends up taking her out, and he does assault her. And so in this issue, it's very, like, I feel like I have to give you a trigger warning, because this is, her friend comes and finds her, and Edie not only is having the illness of whatever this blob type creature is that's coming for her, but she also realizes everything that happened to her. And so there is a police investigation about the assault in this, and you do get to see people getting interviewed and how that situation actually works. You get the coach of the football team talking about how great a kid he is, and the teacher saying he's never done anything wrong in class, and the people who speak for him as friends, and then not enough people speaking for Edie, and so you do actually have that conversation, but at the same time, she is also turning into possibly some kind of monster, and we're going to see what that actually means for her. So everybody thinks maybe she's just upset because of the assault situation and what's going on, but there is more to that story and what is going on with Edie, and we are going to figure out just how far that's going to go. And I'm not going to show you the last few pages of the book because things start to happen by the end that you worry extensively for Edie.
Homage cover.
Is it? This is an homage cover?
To
House of Secrets?
92.
Yeah.
First one.
I was going to say that looks like House of Secrets front, the first part of it. Cobra Commander, issue 2 from Image, Skybound, and the Energon Universe. I told you a while ago, just a few minutes ago, we were going to talk about this. Here it is. Cobra Commander's cliffhanger was something that drove so many people to the comic book store when they heard about it on the internet. I had so many people coming in and telling me, I'm here for Cobra Commander because I want to know what's going to happen. I heard about the cliffhanger. But this is not actually going to pick up where that cliffhanger left off. This is going to pick up with Cobra Commander actually in Orlando, which is kind of cool. Doing an investigation. He is looking for that energy that we know is coming from the Transformers, and he is trying to find more of it for things that he is working on. And he kind of falls into some more characters that are from the G.I. Joe universe and goes into some fights with them. We get to see Cobra Commander growing into who he is going to be. You know, in issue 1, he was not the commander. He specifically requests that title. He kind of is like, I'm going to be the future of Cobra Law. I've heard mixed feelings about the concept of the fact that they are using Cobra Law, but everybody that is actually reading it is like, I didn't know that I wanted Cobra Law, but Joshua Williamson is doing such a good job with it. If you are a G.I. Joe fan, you know that's part of the mythology that has always been debatable because it got a little cheesy on the cartoon, but Joshua Williamson talks about, the place of Cobra Law and the training that came there and the craziness of how caricature-esque that Cobra Commander eventually became on the show. Joshua Williamson is trying to take some of that back and actually give us a heavier lore and a strong story for Cobra Commander in this, and you're definitely seeing that as that unfolds. Up next, we have Quested, Volume 2, Issue 2 from Massive Comics. This is perfect for people who are fans of I Hate Fairyland. This is very similar in not only art style, but storytelling as well. This is about a guy named Jinx, who is a quester. And in Volume 1, he has the most ridiculous quest. He is definitely just creating quests to make money and not actually help people, and always goes for the kill in the same way that Gert does in I Hate Fairyland. And in Volume 2, he is actually traveling the Underbrawn, or the Underworld, and is supposed to be looking for his own father to help the ferrymen with a quest that they need to hopefully get out. And in this issue, he ends up coming across the Jelly, who are literally little blobs of jelly, essentially. And he meets their king, and their king is like, you said you killed most of us. That's why we're here in the underworld. And he's like, you should put me on trial for that and don't kill me, but let's talk about how I helped you by making you the king of the underworld and building out your empire. And Jinx has to come up with some quick, fast thinking in order to save himself from the jelly hordes that want to take his head, as well as that of the ferryman that he is helping. Again, if you're a fan of I Hate Fairyland, you are going to absolutely love the humor in this book and the storytelling that they do. And the art kind of looks like Scotty's. Up next, we have Crashdown issue 2, which is also from Massive, but from their Whatnot publishing branch. And this is written by Comic Tom. So if you are somebody who follows all of the news and content creators in the comic industry, you know Comic Tom as one of the big people who tells you your hot books of the week. Now he is writing a book, and this is his story about a group of people who have fled the planet Earth because Earth is being destroyed, and they're living on a spaceship, and most of them have been cryo-frozen in order to keep them safe until they find the perfect planet to land on. But when they go to wake up their soldiers who are supposed to go onto the planet, one of them has drastically aged to the point where he's like 90 years old and not able to do anything. And so the rest of the group is sent down there only to find out that the planet that they have found is overrun with monstrous creatures and terrible things, and there's no way to communicate with the people on the spaceship about what is going on. And so, is anybody safe? Because the people on the spaceship can't necessarily stay there. The people cryo-frozen might be in danger with something going on. And now the people on the planet are in the most immediate of dangers because things are constantly happening. We're going to find out if anybody makes it out alive and where this is going very quickly. Because this is every issue has been stacked full of stuff happening, and we're going to see where Common Tom takes as the story unfolds. Jill and the Killers, issue 2 from Oni Press. I absolutely adore the fun that happens in this book. This is about Jill, who is a young girl whose mom recently disappeared. And because of how she responded to it and everything that's happened, her dad has kept her in lockdown for about a year. And she finally gets released only to find out that everybody in school is now obsessed with true crime. And so Jill, whose mom was a detective, is like, oh, I can talk true crime all day. And they're like, do you want to play one of the games? Like, you can order a murder mystery box and we can all solve a crime and it'll be fun. So Jill orders a box arrives on her doorstep. She thinks it's the game. Turns out, actually a crime. That the mystery arrives on her doorstep, and as her and her friends start investigating, they find out that every December 14th, some boy is stolen. Every 5 years, I guess, on December 14th, a boy in their community is stolen, and something happens, and they are eventually murdered, and nobody ever finds the body or anything. And these girls have started finding the bodies. They've started finding the clues. They are piecing it together. And they're kind of dealing with all of their emotional stuff, especially Jill from her missing mom, at the same time. This is fantastic. Please, somebody, if you're watching this, please option this because I need to see this as a movie. It already plays out as a movie. It's so well written. It's ready to go. Make this into a movie. It'll do fantastic. But also, I really need us to figure out what is going on and time to save our one friend, our one dude that we have all been friends with in this story so far. Are we going to be able to save him? Are we going to be too late? Is Jill going to ever figure out what actually happened to her mom? Who knows? Hopefully we find out. But it's a thrill ride the whole way through. I can't wait. All right, number ones. We've got Neurocron number 1, and this is from Invader Comics. And this was one of the surprising books for me. I was like, this might be like too cheesy sci-fi. Where is this going to go? Like, I wasn't sure about it. And then I read it and I was like, wow, this is actually a really great story. I can't wait to see what unfolds from this. But it starts by following a guy who is talking about all of the tech upgrades that have been done to his mind and to his body. And then literally he's just killed. And that's all on like page 1 and 2. And then we start following a detective and she is like, I have to figure out what happened. This man was murdered and he had all of this tech stuff done to his brain. And it kind of talks about how, you know, evolution can only go so far and so fast, but technology can go as fast as we're willing to push it. And what happened is that this major tech company started coming up with ways to enhance the body, but then the government ruled that you couldn't do that. But now this guy was murdered and he's got all this tech in his brain. And so it's like, oh my gosh, what happened? How did this man get this tech in his brain? Where's this coming from? And so she starts investigating. She points essentially to the big tech organization that is making weapons and making huge technological advances. And their Steve Jobs type guy that has originally made all this went missing years ago. And she's like, I don't believe that he's actually missing. I think that y'all have him hidden somewhere and you're still using him for things. And they're like, that's a conspiracy theory and you're crazy. Don't fall into this like weird trap. And so she keeps investigating and it leads her down a path to a place where she finds all kinds of weird tech stuff that is being used through these tattoos and things that people are doing, and opens up a great investigation. I can't wait to see where it goes. I want to know what's going to happen next because this is such an interesting concept, and we start with the guy who was murdered, and we were following him. So, like, where is this going? Because now we're following somebody else. It's well done, and I can't wait to see what happens next. Working Class Wizards, issue 1 from Band of Bards. Excited to see some new Band of Bards titles coming out. We love our friends at Band of Bards, and this is yet another fun one from them. This is set in Chicago in 1976, and it follows the guitarist. And I must say, my favorite thing that actually happens in this is on the very first page. There's talking about getting shots of Malort. And then and I was like, I love that you opened up your book and you're like, hey, how do we tell people that this is set in Chicago? Oh, we'll just have them talk about Malort. And then the guy on the very next page is drinking an old style. Like, how do you showcase that we've got people living in Chicago? You put in 2 of the most known Chicago drinks in bars. But it follows a heavy metal guitarist who, in the middle of his set, is actually attacked by like some crazy monstrous creatures, and suddenly a battle axe appears, and he's like, oh, I have to stop this. And he grabs the axe and starts fighting, and then a wizard shows up and is like, I bet you're wondering what happened. Let's go get some tacos and we'll talk about it. And come to find out that there has been a war going on for a really long time between wizards and elves and humans and dark magic. And this wizard has actually been the only wizard for a long time who has been working on his own to keep dark magic at bay. And the way it works is that they had gotten elves to create seals that were going to keep the dark magic at bay. But once the elves saw how bad humans got over the course of time, they decided they didn't want to help anymore. And now dark magic is seeping out, and there are only 3 people who can stop it. And this guy is one of them. And now he must team up with a creator and a wizard and try to stop everything. And it is a fun book. I can't wait to see where this one goes as well, because it's already got a great cast of characters and a ragtag group of people who definitely don't need to be working together, but are going to be stuck doing that. And Ancient Evil is in Chicago, so we're going to get to see a whole story unfold in Chicago, which I always love. Humbaba, issue 1 from Blood Moon Comics. This takes place deep in the bayou of Louisiana. We've got a guy who is absolutely determined to find Humbaba, which is supposed to be this massive deer with giant horns, and he's like, I need to get this deer. I've got to kill it. I want to be the one. And this like old lady is like, oh, you need this special concoction that I have. It'll draw it out. And it does in fact draw out Humbaba. But he does not, in fact, want that to happen, because this is what it looks like when he comes for you. This deer is not just a deer. It is a mutant creature that is ready to take everybody down, and it does not go well for anybody involved. And as this now mutant creature is unleashed upon the bayou, it's not pretty. And I love that they label this book not for youngsters, because not only does this man get torn apart, and like people get torn apart, all kinds of things go crazy, but it is full of dark humor that is definitely I love that they say it's mixes to create a gumbo of horror, comedy, and science fiction, and that is definitely a great way to describe that. Worlds Away, issues 1 and 2 from Band of Bards. I love getting a double issue. It always makes me excited. And this is about a woman named Serenity, and her daughter is Mackenzie. And in the first issue, we see that Mackenzie is sick, and an only way to protect her is they need to get this stuff that they can use to save her, and it's going to have to be stolen. And it is all told from the point of view of Mackenzie's father, who is like, I'm going to do what I have to do to protect Mackenzie. And then we see Mackenzie and her mother worlds away years later, trying to deal with a situation in space where they are like, we're stuck on this planet. What is going on? And Mackenzie's like, I hate my mom. She is so rude to me. She just treats me like I work for her. It's absolutely terrible. And they're trying to make their way through this place when they are attacked by a witch on the planet. And they end up coming into contact with these two other people, a father and his daughter, who are kind of the polar opposite of Mackenzie and Serenity. And they end up having to team up together to see if they can make their way through this planet. And what they learn is that there is an evil sorcerer who kind of holds all of the power that they would need to get off this planet. And so if they want to get off of it, they're going to have to team up and make that happen. Except both parents have their own reasons for not working with their children. And this kind of has a great conversation about parents and, you know, oh, I wish my parent was like this. Oh, I wish my parent was like that between the two kids. But also just all the ways we idolize and kind of like demonize parents within our kidness. So great story so far. I hope that we get 2 issues in every issue because I just like having oversized issues and getting all of the comics at one time. The Crying Boy, issue 1 from Keen Spot. This is a highly requested book this last week, I guess I should say. This is about a mother and son who she loses her husband, he loses his father, and they end up moving into a different part of the city and getting into an apartment. And when they move into the apartment, there is a painting of a sad boy on the wall that is crying. And they find out that the apartment was owned by a small family, a mother, father, and son, and a fire happened in the apartment and nobody made it out. And so a lot of strange things start happening in the apartment. The son starts, having a new imaginary friend and talking to the painting and having all these weird things happen. And the mom starts hearing things and seeing things. And she brings her sister in to come stay with them. And it's not just them that are seeing weird things. Strange things are happening. And we are going to see where that goes because it just gets darker and darker as the story goes on. The Theme of Thieves, issue 1 from Comicsburg. This is also a thick issue. Really excited about this. This was great. It opens up with, it is very heavy. I will tell you that. It was very heavy when it opened up, and I was like, oh my gosh, what is this book going to do? What is it going to say? And then I was super in the whole time because it just keeps it going. It starts out with a slave owner being very cruel to his slaves and a man who stands up for his wife. And then it fast forwards to the future after some things happen that I'm not going to tell you about. And we see a young woman whose mother has disappeared and whose dad has become very overprotective. And she is talking about school and how much school sucks. And in the process of that, we learn that there is a situation that is going, a supernatural occurrence where people are disappearing. And it is called an evanescence. And essentially, people are starting to disappear. And of course, we've got all kinds of conspiracy theories that are similar to things that we would probably hear on the news or have heard on the news in the last couple of years about what is going on and what's happening. And these people just disappear. And, maybe that's what happened to this girl. Maybe this girl's mom, and maybe something else happened. But she's kind of got a really heavy chip on her shoulder, and her friends don't really understand it. Meanwhile, a friend of hers, or another kid who's kind of having a hard time that she takes into consideration in a way that nobody else does, is learning to deal with an abusive parent and having to stand on his own. And we start to see how those two paths are going to cross. We also see this evanescence returning for the first time in a minute, and people starting to disappear again, and learning a little bit about what that is going to look like. We also learn about a mysterious man who seems to appear at different times, somehow maybe connected to the evanescence, maybe connected to what's going on. We learn the entire history of that whole entire process. This book did such a great job of giving you a starting point that really got you invested in the characters, and then giving you a whole new set of characters when you go to the modern time, and then also giving you all of the lore. Like, you told me everything I needed to know about what this sci-fi experience was and where it was coming from and, like, the history. And they did it in such a way where you never once, like, info drops. It was, like, the conspiracy theorists talking on the news, like, with the actual news anchors and, like, them battling it out. And it's, like, as you read it, you kind of piece together what it all means and how it works together. I am so excited to see where this goes. This is going to be such a good story. I can't wait. If you didn't pick up issue 1 yet, you definitely need to, because it's going to be great. Cemetery Kids Don't Die, issue 1 from Oni Press. What would happen if you were inside of a video game and the video game seemed to be attacking you? That's kind of what we see here. We are following a group of kids who are all in a role-playing game. And that is the only place that 2 of our characters actually talk to each other. And those 2 characters are brother and sister. And something happened to their parents, and now they're kind of on their own. And the younger sister is trying really hard to get her brother to pay attention to her and to share his feelings and emotions. And he just absolutely will not do it. And while they're in the game, something happens to him, and he starts having like the things that attack him in the game start showing up in real life, and he starts to get sick and like crazy and like won't talk to anybody about what's going on, so nobody's really sure if it's really happening. But it seems to go, the further into the darkness they go, the further into darkness he falls. And our you know, the tagline is, you're only alive if you're online. So are these kids gonna survive? Is the game gonna kill them? Is the game gonna save them? We're gonna find out. The relationship drawings in this book were done so well, so quickly. I can't wait to see how they connect. This is well done for all of the people, and I'm already invested in everybody's story. Zor #1 from Keen Spot. This is so adorably cute of a story. This is like a Pixar movie in comic form. This is about a young girl whose mom passes away, and her dad gives her a ring from her mom as a way to feel like she has something to connect her. And one day when the little girl is brushing her teeth, she knocks the ring down into the sink, and she panics because it's broken and she can't find it. Well, she starts crying, and one of her teardrops that lands in the sink comes to life and is now determined to find the ring and save the girl from her sadness. And so he is going on this epic adventure through the drainage pipe. And so he fights sludge, and he fights flies, and he makes friends with some of the dust bunny farmer, and they have to fight against an upcoming danger that we see teased for us for the next issue. But seriously, this is an absolutely adorable Pixar film in comic form. You absolutely need to read it if you just want a feel-good story. I think this is going to be one of those in the end. The Jaguar #1 from Archie Comics, introducing a brand new character in the superhero side of Archie, which we don't see a lot of anymore. We used to have a lot of like the big superhero stuff from Archie. Haven't seen that in a minute. Now we've got a new one, which is all about a young girl who is on a team of zoologists who go to northern Peru to investigate the fact that a bunch of birds of prey are killing or believed to be killing something. And while they're there, they end up finding out that there's more to it, and they need somebody to investigate in a different way. And we see that the jaguar, which is a mythological creature that kind of a superhero that nobody's seen in a long time, is actually returned. And it may be that one of our zoologists has actually found her true calling in these wild woods. And so if you're looking for a great fun origin story for a new superhero, this is definitely it. And if you are a collector of first appearances, that is also it. The Six Fingers #1 from Image Comics. All right, here's what you need to know. If you read, oh my gosh, what is it called? The hand, the one hand from Rombi that just came out a couple weeks ago. This is actually, they are doing a companion story. Yes, I was right, the one hand. They are doing companion stories. So the one hand is from a murder mystery investigation from the detective side of the thing. This is the same story from the killer's point of view, which is a really cool way to do it. We see in this story a young man who kind of has nothing going for him. Like, he's working at a factory. He loves this job. He loves it so much that something goes wrong, and he actually, like, goes into this toxic chemical to try to save it because nobody else is coming to do it. And he's like, I just want to help the factory. I love it so much. Meanwhile, he gets, like, held, you know, back and ends up late to his girlfriend's gallery show. She gets mad at him. You know, they have a problem. He gets in a fight with her. His day is just going absolutely terrible. And then he wakes up the next day and realizes there's a lot of his day that's missing. And he kind of wants to figure out what it was that happened. And as he retraces his steps, he figures out that he may have made some decisions that he normally wouldn't make. And, like I said, this takes place from the murderer's point of view. So we're going to see exactly what that means and where that's taken him.
Is this also Ram V?
No. So this is, Ram V is writing the one hand, and this is, I believe it's Dan Waters. Yeah, Dan Waters is writing this side. And they are working together on the overall plot. And then each one is writing like one side or the other. So it's really cool to see how they go. You honestly could probably read, like, after issue 1, if you read issue 1 of this and you didn't read issue 1 of that, you're not going to be lost. So I don't know if they'll eventually cross over in a way where you need to read both, but as of issue 1, you could actually just read one without the other. We'll see how that maintains as that story goes on. Blasphemous, issue 1 from Distillery. This is Mirka and Dolfo doing everything on this story, and it is the story of a world where we've decided to essentially make religion influencers. And so people are coming out and they're making albums and they're doing movies and they're doing different things, but that is how following them is how you get blessed. It's how you go to heaven. It's how miracles happen. You have to essentially give to these influencers and support them, like join their Patreons and like their OnlyFans essentially, in order to actually get the blessings of what you would normally get from going to church. And we are following the most famous of influencers, who has started to kind of lose her mind. And she can't handle it anymore. The stress of everything is just absolutely driving her mad. And she's starting to have memories of a time when she wasn't a part of that, and she wants to go back to the situation. So they her handler ends up hiring a psychiatrist to come work with her and keep her in line. And we find out when she is filling out her contract, we actually find out how this all came to be and where these influencers came from and what they're actually doing and what this conspiracy behind all of this really is. And it gets pretty dark pretty fast. If you know Mirka and Dolfo, you know she loves to work angels and demon stories all together all the time, and she does such a great job with this one. It's funny. It's got a little bit of all of like the tidbits of horror that you might want. It's got some it's got a great love story. It's got a great story of people trying to help other people trying to take advantage of other people. You get it all in this book. And you get it all in IMAX format because all Distillery books come in prestige size magazine format. So grab yourself a magazine box and some magazine bags and boards because you're going to want to collect everything Distillery does for sure. All right, we had some really amazing books come out this week. They're going to be a Mod Picks of the Week, and we're going to start out with another one of those books that makes you want to cry. This is Sunflowers. It is a one-shot, and it is from Silver Sprocket. This is an autobiographical comic about living with bipolar disorder, and it is absolutely stunningly beautiful. It's the story of Kizzy Young, who talks about what it's like to have mania and to have the euphoria sense of all of the positive sides of bipolar disorder, and then what it's like to kind of have that psychosis and to feel like you're falling apart, and the way that the people of the world view you because of those things that you have, and how some of those are big moments and some of them are small moments, and how everything can crash down inside of you. And one of the most beautiful things that this book does is it talks about how all of the great feelings that you get when you get that hypomania that makes you want to work on things, it makes you creative, makes you feel amazing. And it talks about how it has this one page that just says what goes up must come down, and then you get this, and this repeats for several pages. And this was such a beautiful, like, it's such a great use of the medium. It's such a great use of storytelling, to talk about how you just feel darkness and you're overwhelmed by it. What an incredible way to show that, and put that into the story and make you feel that that's not gonna ever end. And they even talk about that, like, you feel that way until it ends. Like, that's the way it comes out of that moment. It's an absolutely beautiful story. I honestly want to just say, like, thank you to Kizzy Young for sharing this story with us. And they talk about how, like, they never shared any of this with other people because the one time that they tried to share something, everybody, even in a mental health space, kind of stared at them like they were a crazy person. And they were like, I'm not, I just have feelings and I want to share them. And I don't want to have to hide anymore. And I wanted to make comics because I wanted to change the world. And maybe the way I can do that is just by sharing my own story. Absolutely beautiful. The art is stunning. The story is moving. This is one of those things that, like, what can you do with a comic and what can you do to, like, with your writing and your art to change the world? This is definitely it, Kizzy. You nailed it. Rare Flavors, issue 4 from Rob B and Boom Studios. This is just, I think this has been in my picks every time it's come out. I love Rob's writing. I love Felipe Andrade's art. And this is your food manga in comic form, but with that little supernatural twist to it. This is the story of a demon who really just loves food, and he wants to eat and he wants to enjoy his food. And over the centuries, he's had this problem where he ended up, eating the people a lot of the time because he wanted to really understand where the food came from and really dive into it all. I love this because in true food manga sense, though, you do actually get the recipe and they work in the cooking of the thing throughout the entire story, and it kind of ends up blending into what they're talking about. In the last issue, our demon had been captured, and we actually get to see the conversation that follows after that. And that's kind of one of the things I love about this that makes it feel in that food manga sense is the action actually happens off the screen. This book is just conversations over food. And there was a need for big action after the end of the last issue. And this issue starts with them talking over food again. And I love that. I love the way Rom's doing it. I love that in this issue we get the backstory of our demon character and how it connects to what's going on. It's absolutely fantastic. If you haven't read it yet, please check it out. Speaking of all-star writers, just that's where we're going. That's what the picks of the week are this week, is just awesome writing, and we are going to see it again in Animal Pound issue 2 from Tom King and from Boom Studios. This is Tom King retelling the story of Animal Farm, but in a pound. So we are focusing on dogs, cats, and rabbits. And in the last issue, in the first issue, we saw the dogs and cats come together and take over a pound. They chase down the humans, the dogs using their muscles, the cats using their prowess and their brains. And they have now come to the point where it's been a little bit, they don't really have food. Animals are starting to attack other animals. Things are getting bad. So they realize they need to set up a governmental system. If you ever want to know how a governmental system is formed and how politics work, you should read this issue of Animal Pound, because Tom King does such a great job of talking about, like, well, if, we need to do this and this is how we need to set it up. And it's kind of a look at, instead of, the totalitarianism that Animal Farm looks at, this is actually looking at how democracy works. And does democracy actually work? And how we put that together, and when we try to make everything fair, do we end up not doing what we actually intended to do? And in this issue, we see all of that. We see the discussions, we see the weight of each vote, we see the electoral college essentially be formed in this Animal Pound. We get to see all of it, and then we still realize that checks and balances often lead us to a place where nothing happens, and these animals need to eat and they need to make some decisions very fast, and we are going to see them try to make their government work in ways very similar to how we see our government try to make itself work. Tom King is at his best on this book. Honestly, he is just absolutely crushing it. This book is so good, and I can't wait to see where it goes. And then lastly, we've got Tenement issue 9 from Jeff Lemire and Image Comics. This is definitely going to be a series. This series has just been a pick of greatness and a huge pick in Bat City recently. But honestly, I brought this one for Andrea Sorrentino's incredible art. This is definitely my favorite art that Sorrentino has ever done. If you are not reading the Bone Orchard Mythos series overall, that is actually what I'm telling you to read. It has become a fan favorite, like I said here. This is the story. It started out as a story of a bunch of people who lived in an apartment building, and that apartment building kind of becomes a representation of the different circles of hell, as they are find themselves all trapped in it. And as they have been working their way through these circles of hell, we have seen a huge mythology form from Jeff Lemire of a group of ancient gods and demons, however you want to view them, that have kind of overseen everything that has happened in our world and has led us to this dark place. And I'm trying so hard to say this without giving away any of the things that happen in this book, but these people who live in this tenement have found themselves working through their own darkness, as well as learning that all of humanity has been led down a dark path. We found a great spread in the last, was it 2 issues ago, where we learned what all the demons themselves, the gods, what the deceivers, the different things like that have all been. And in this issue, we actually see we're finding ourselves getting closer to the first floor, because we've been trying to make our way out of this tenement. Like I said, it kind of feels like going through the circles of hell. And we've made it to this floor that kind of feels like a euphoria. It seems like this great, wonderful place. And it's like, maybe everything isn't so bad. Maybe this could be our Garden of Eden. And as they kind of they pick that apart, they realize that nothing is ever as perfect as it seems, and they remember that they are essentially in this dark world, and they need to find their passageway out. If you have not read any of this series, or any of the connecting series, which is 10,000 Black Feathers and the graphic novel The Passageway, you have to dive in. And I started back at The Passageway, which was the first thing that came out for the Bone Orchard Mythos, and Matt started here. And Matt said, you know, after he read this and went back and read everything else, he was like, oh my gosh, I wish I would have started where you did. But then after hearing him talk about it, I was like, I wish I had started where you did. So at the end of the day, it kind of almost doesn't matter where you start, because everybody's getting different things from where they've started. We have customers who started at 10,000 Black Feathers, and we're like, that was my favorite, and it made me jump into the whole thing. This is a universe that didn't feel like it was highly connected at the very beginning, and now we've started to see those connecting pieces of the puzzle really come together in this series. And as this Tenement has brought it all together, you could still just read Tenement and you're going to get a great story. But if you really want to see a massive lore from a creative team that brought us Gideon Falls and great things, you're going to want to dive in. And there is, this fall, there is another graphic novel that will be connected to this whole world as well. So it is going to only keep getting bigger. But like I said, you only want to read one? You could only read one. I don't know which one. I really love Tenement. I think that would be the one I would tell you if you were only going to read one, read that one. But I've heard people say all the other ones too. So you know what? Find your start point and just jump into the Bone Orchard Mythos. That's my request for that. All right, so we've got some other books in stock. I'm going to go through these really fast. We've got Radiant Black issues 28 and 28.5. That is important to do, because if you didn't know that recently, Radiant Black has split into 2 issues every issue, because Marshall and my gosh, I just forgot his name. Both of the main characters that have had the Radiant Power are now both telling their story as if they were the ones who were chosen to keep the Radiant Power. Destiny New York. This is My Girlfriend Broke Up With Me, so now I run the Mystical Mafia, issue 2. This is essentially volume 2 or 3 of Destiny New York, which is kind of like if you were Harry Potter or Percy Jackson, you went to a special school where you were trained on how to fulfill your prophecy and what happens after that. Godzilla Rivals, Mothra versus Megura. These just have some of the best of kind of stories mixed in there. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles source book. Yes, I do have one. It's right here. And it's really fantastic. We had a couple of facsimiles come out this week. X-Men 268. This is the foil facsimile for that. We also had the Secret Wars issue 2, that Magneto cover, also in a fancy foil. What? Batman Brave and the Bold issue 10, also out. This is not your typical Brave and the Bold. It is not fun, happy mixing of all the characters. This is a very dark Batman and Robin story. Make sure you don't think that it's kid-friendly. Avengers Twilight issue 3, fan favorite Avengers story right now. We are seeing so many people come in for that one. Harley Quinn issue 37. We've got a giant size Fantastic Four issue 1. We are seeing a lot of giant size coming out for the different Marvel titles right now. Thrawn Alliance issue 2. For those of you who are fans of Thrawn, he is back in comics and you need to jump on. Speaking of people who are back in comics, we've got a new Spider-Punk series that launched this week. I'm so stoked. Who doesn't love Spider-Punk? There were some incredible covers for sure. Thor issue 7. Oh my gosh, we are flying through on this new Thor. We've got Resurrection of Magneto issue 2. This is part of your Fall of the House of X storyline. Dead X-Men issue 2, also part of your Fall of X. We've got Amazon's Attack issue 5. This is connecting to your story that is going on in Tom King's Wonder Woman right now. Wolverine issue 42 with a little happy birthday Logan on there because we are celebrating 50 years of Wolverine. Women of Marvel issue 1 is out to celebrate Women's History Month. We're going to see a lot of the Women's History Month variants coming from the big 2 publishers soon. White Widow issue 4 from Marvel, your Yelena Belova story. Wheel of Time volume 2, I believe we decided it was volume 2. And this is issue 4 from that. Undiscovered Country issue 28 from Charles Soule and Scott Snyder. Red Sonja issue 8, and I love this super dope cover. Frank Avila just crushing it with a cool cover. We've got Punisher issue 4 for the new Punisher series that has just launched recently. We've got Power Pack Into the Storm coming to you from your Power Pack creators, bringing back a series from both of them working together again, which is really exciting. Power Girl issue 5 with your swimsuit, snowsuit variant. We've got Penguin issue 7. For out of your Donna DC, the Penguin story continues. We've got a second print of Moon Man issue 1. This is Kid Cudi's comic. If you missed out on it, we are sold out of the regular first print of issue 1. But if you are looking for it, we do have second prints in stock now. Invincible Iron Man issue 15. Green Arrow issue 9. Fire and Ice Tigra. This is a one-shot from Fire and Ice, not the DC Fire and Ice, but the Conan universe Fire and Ice. We've got The Expanse, the Dragon Tooth, issue 9 of 12. We've got Carnage, issue 4. We've got Cable, issue 2, also part of your House of the Fall of X. We've got a third printing of Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees, issue 1. If you missed out on this series, grab this third print. You want to read it. It is Dexter with adorable animals, and it has been super popular. Avatar is back with Frontiers of Pandora, issue 1 from Dark Horse. We've got Volume 5 of Radiant Black launched this week, so if you are somebody who trade weights your Radiant Black, we've got that trade paperback in stock. Miles Morales, Spider-Man. This is volume 2 of the current ongoing Miles Morales story, so issues 8 through 12. Speaking of ongoing stories, new volumes out, we've got volume 7 of Something is Killing the Children, so that is issues 31 through 35, which will catch you up with where Something is Killing the Children is right now. And then we have Crusader. This is all 4 issues of the title from Mad Cave about the Knights Templar knight who is sucked back into a magical world, has no idea where he is, but is learning how to fight for people for purpose and not just for the fact that he was told to do so. And then we've got a couple of great new graphic novels in stock. We've got Whistleblowers, 4 people who fought to expose the Holocaust to America. We've got Queenie, which is the godmother of Harlem, which is a historical graphic novel about Harlem's legendary mobster Stephanie St. Clair. I love to read stories about female mobsters. I think that's so cool. And then we actually got the multi-Eisner nominated and possibly, did it win multiple awards? I know it won one award for sure. Ducks in stock. So if you did not get to read Ducks that came out last year, we actually do have it in stock. Make sure you come by and grab that. This is all about 2 years in the oil sands. It is such a beautiful book. So come and grab it. And I just love the way the cover feels. I'm going to keep touching it. That is all we have for you tonight. Coming up this week is nothing really at Bat City. It is Will Eisner Spirit of Comics Week is celebrating the birthday of Will Eisner. So this Thursday, the 7th, is the last day for kiddos to turn in their Spirit of Comics bookmark competition entries. So make sure if you haven't stopped by to grab that, you can stop by and grab one of the forms where you can draw your bookmark. If you're an educator or a parent and you have a printer, you can actually download them and print it out at home and bring it in by this Thursday. There's some cool prizes for that. We also, tomorrow, Monday, I will be in conversation with Dr. Zachary Stuckelman online. There'll be a Zoom link where you can watch that. And we're going to be talking about comics in the classroom and how you can use comics to educate the students that you're working with. On Tuesday, I will be in conversation also on the internet with our art historian Barrett Burke, who's one of our incredible volunteers who you may have seen last week if you were here shopping while Matt and I were gone. And we are going to be talking about comics as art history and the impact that they have had on the art world. It is such a great time. I love getting to celebrate Will Eisner and all the wonderful things he did, not only as a comic creator, but as somebody who just took the comic industry to the mainstream world and talked about all the great things that you can do. So thank you to the Will Eisner Foundation for putting this on and for letting us be a part of it. And then coming up next week, there'll be a ton more events, so make sure you're checking out our Instagram and Facebook for input on when those events are so you can make sure you don't miss them. Once again, a huge thank you to our friends at Bad Kids Press for our Frankenrocker and Jailbait Punks wine. It is delicious. Make sure you grab some if you're in the Massachusetts area because it's wonderful. And if you're not, make sure at least grab copies of Bad Kids Press comics to read. They're fantastic, fun, and beautiful art. Until we see you on Wednesday for New Comic Book Day, hope you found some titles you enjoyed tonight, and happy reading, everyone.